A snowstorm in Alberta is causing multiple crashes and stranding commuters. The conditions prompted a highway closure south of Fort McMurray. Emergency services are delivering food and gas to those who are stuck. And the CBC's Hilary Johnstone joins me now with more on this. And Hilary, it's pretty bad out there, right? For these
It's pretty bad
folks.
If you consider 16 hours in your vehicle bad. I know I would. That's something that these motorists were definitely not prepared for based on some of the stories that they've been telling our local colleagues on the ground. Stories of eating all the groceries in their vehicle that they had picked up during the grocery trip they thought would not turn into a 16-hour adventure. Stories of taking blankets and clothes out of suitcases they just happen to have in their vehicles to try to stay warm because they're running out of gasoline in their vehicles. Some of these drivers, like I say, have now been on the road or stuck in their vehicles for 15, even 16 hours at a time. At this point, what we're hearing from the RCMP in Alberta is that people should avoid all travel on roads in the eastern part of the province because of heavy snowfall and winds that are causing whiteout conditions in various parts of eastern Alberta. Now, one of the areas that is particularly bad is Highway 63. Part of it, of course, leading into and out of Fort McMurray, Alberta, but parts of it have been closed in both directions at various times today. Now, our colleague spoke with a woman who had spent at this point about 16 hours in her vehicle. She said that they were 100 kilometers away from their home. They only had about 143 kilometers worth of gas left in the tank. So they were turning the car on for 15 minutes and then turning it off for 45. But that meant they were getting pretty cold. And she talked about a chance encounter that she had with the police while stuck on the highway.
We had one RCMP officer. She was walking. This was 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And she literally walked because she couldn't drive anymore, walked kilometers to wherever she had to go because she had a situation to deal with. And then she went back to her vehicle and left on the southbound or the northbound or southbound lanes going north. And we haven't seen anybody else since.
Haven't seen anybody else since. Now, the other thing we've been hearing from some of these motorists who are stranded is that in front of them, there'll be a tow truck that is stuck, or there will be another emergency vehicle or snowplow that is stuck. And they say that that is not bringing them much comfort when some of those vehicles that you would think might be used in order to help them get out are also stuck. Now, that photograph you saw just a moment ago, there was a still image there of 2 people with someone on a man's back. That was a child, someone trying to get their child to safety. You can only imagine what it must be like for people who were stranded with young children in the vehicle or pets for that matter as well. For their part, the Alberta RCMP are warning that because of these really bad conditions on Alberta highways right now, that it is going to take them longer than usual to respond to 911 calls. That's that photograph again. I was just speaking about a man with a young child on his back trying to get them to safety and get them to warmth. So certainly the message right now, Andrew, from RCMP in Alberta, stay off the roads if you are impacted by these conditions, these whiteout conditions, snow, blowing snow. Yes, it's the end of April, but as we've seen, some wild weather for spring so far in parts of this country.
But, and we can obviously see people taking desperate means to get out of that
Absolutely.
situation. But so there are people that are emergency workers that are getting food or helping people out a little bit?
In some cases, they seem to be. Now, what that woman was just talking about in that little bit that we played for you was a police officer who was responding to a different call who was having to walk there on foot herself. So even when people are coming across emergency personnel in some cases, it could be because they're also stranded trying to get wherever it is they're trying to go.
What a mess. Okay.
What a mess is right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next guest was one of the people affected by that highway closure. Diana Noble was stuck on Highway 63. She joins us now from Fort McMurray, Alberta. Diana, nice to see you inside and warm. You were stuck for 15 hours. How did you get out?
Well, I actually originally got off the road at around 4:30 p.m. Somebody was passing my vehicle unsafely, and they ran myself and another vehicle behind me off of the road. So 4:30 p.m. is kind of when our journey started in that regard, and we had called AMA. We thought tow trucks were coming, and then about 6:30 we were notified by AMA that they were not sending tow trucks. They weren't going to come and get us until the following day. They told us to call the RCMP to get a lift back to town. The lady behind me called the RCMP. Apparently they told her to call a cab because they're not coming either. And at that point in time, we decided to hitchhike and find a nice family. We found a wonderful family who, sure enough, I thought that they had not enough room in their vehicle, and they made enough room for us. So there were 7 of us traveling, and we thought, yes, great. We're feeling relieved. It's about 6:30 p.m. and we got about another 5 kilometers up, and that's where we were now stuck for the next 12 hours. So from 6:45 p.m. until 6 o'clock this morning, we did not move an inch. Now, what ended up happening was that ultimately some courageous civilians from Fort McMurray drove all the way out to help people because we were not being helped. There was nothing that was being done. We had notified the RCMP on multiple occasions. We had also contacted the plow truck contractor for the province of Alberta for Highway 63, 4 separate occasions throughout the evening. And we had told them, you need to come south on the northbound direction and deal with this from the front because it was so backed up. And they did not listen. They instead decided to try to go past it and come around. That's where you hear the instances of all these tow trucks being stuck because there was no way they were going to be getting through all of that to help anybody. So finally at 6 o'clock in the morning, it was really nice. We saw some people come up to our window with a box of pizza, asking us if we were hungry. And there were a couple of vehicles that were in front of ours. We were kind of at the beginning. There was maybe about 20 vehicles or so that were ahead of us. And then that's what, created the backlog. But the reality is that there were vehicles that were stuck in front of us that were blocking the road and nobody could get past. And so these courageous volunteers drove all the way out in their own vehicles, and they were able to successfully remove the blockages, which allowed us to then get free. And ultimately we had to drive back. We crossed over onto the southbound to go north, and thaphantly 8 o'clock this morning made it back home.
Wow, that is yeah, I'm sure it was a great feeling. But so what was that like, the 7 of you overnight? I mean, I don't know how big the vehicle was. Were you just all cramped together? How did you stay warm? Did you have any water or food?
Yeah. So thankfully it was a 7-seater, and the folks, the family that was driving it. So you had a husband and wife, their 2 young children, and then his mother that were in the vehicle, and there were 2 extra seats. So we all had our own seats. We were buckled up safely, and they had filled up. They had a full tank of gas. They had snacks. They had water, and they really were a saving grace for us. Because we didn't really know what to do, just 2 women stranded on the side of the road. Yeah. But no greater way to make new friendships than to spend 13 hours in a vehicle with people that you don't know overnight.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And so you call the RCMP, and then they told you to call a cab?
So initially, the lady that was behind me, she had called the RCMP after AMA had told her to do that, and they told her, sorry, we're not coming out. You should call a cab and get a lift back to town. And that ultimately, she came over and told me, and we decided we're not staying here. So my vehicle is still about 100 kilometers out, and so is hers, on Highway 63 right now. I think I just recently got a notification that AMA is coming to pick it up, but honestly, it could stay there for days. There are people that are still stranded right now on Highway 63 that have been there since 7 p.m. last night that need desperately to get home. And I can't understand how this is the reality. We should, first and foremost, I will tell you that when I was driving through yesterday, it became very obvious that there had been no plows on the highway, that there had been no sand laid down. So that in itself is a travesty because we had a huge influx of snow. And yeah, and then just no help all night. No notification of what was going on. There were no updates from the RCMP. We contacted the RCMP 4 separate times. We were hung up on the last time that we called. We had called the plow company 4 separate times. Every time it was like they had no idea what was even going on. This is a communication error, an execution error at the greatest magnitude. The fact that all these people are still stranded out there all these hours later is not acceptable.
What was your sense of like how many people? I mean, we're hearing kind of dozens and dozens. Did you have a sense of just how many cars, how many people were stranded on that stretch of highway?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but from what I'm aware of, it was backed all the way up to Wandering River, which is 100 kilometers.
Wow. So that is unbelievable. And so then tell me a little bit about, so you said these civilians, just these regular folks, they came by, and what they kind of shoveled you out or so that you could go across, or how did you get out?
So we were okay. Now, thankfully, or not thankfully, I don't know how you want to look at it, but there was a transport truck that was blocking the left-hand lane that we were parked directly beside. The reason I say thankfully is because that did block some of the snowdrift for us. Now, I will say at about 5:45 this morning, the wife in the vehicle, she needed to go to the bathroom, and we opened the door, and the snowdrift was up to her waist. That's how much snow had traveled in. Now, because we were blocked by the transport truck on the one side, I feel like we weren't as caved in as what some vehicles behind us might have been. So once the vehicles that were blocking, there was a truck that was horizontal, maybe about 4 vehicles ahead of us. And then there was a bunch of crashes above, beyond that. So nobody could go anywhere. You physically could not go anywhere because both the right lane and the left lane were blocked. So the civilians were able to get those vehicles out of the way so that we could then go forward.
Wow, that is really quite an unbelievable story. Good of you to come on and talk to us. Glad that you're safe at home. Diana Noble in Fort McMurray, thank you.
Thank you.